It's almost time. Phase 1 of my life is almost over. Phase 2 is about to begin. My feelings are mixed and intense. I just have to hold on a little longer, and then it will be too late to back out. The first phase of my life consisted of two parts, pre-beam and post-beam. In the pre-beam life, I was absolutely miserable. I was ugly, unruly, mouse brown hair, acne, mutilated face, glasses, double chin, small breasts, fat folds on my belly, and a big ass. I survived through self-deprecation. When someone made fun of my appearance, I agreed with them and laughed with them, and then I cried on the inside. I had a few acquaintances and no friends. Dating? Then, Ree showed up. It was a normal day in the school cafeteria. Welcome to the dark side. Channel dive into the world of human relationships, mistakes, and right decisions. Don't miss out. Subscribe and join our growing community. Some of the girls I knew were teasing me about how I would never get a date because of the way I looked, and I laughed along with them. Ree was a student that everyone respected. He was athletic, smart, and good-looking. We knew who each other were, but we weren't close. Stop it. There is no reason to treat her like that unless you intentionally want to be mean and cruel. I will personally beat up every guy you even try to date if you don't stop your harassment. I was completely shocked. No one had ever defended me before. The girls looked ashamed and went to sit somewhere else. Ray sat down across from me. I had no idea what to say. My happy feelings about what had happened quickly evaporated. Jessica, you're just as bad as they are. How can anyone respect you if you don't respect yourself? You're a good person, and I think you look just fine, just the way you are. I started crying loudly. They teased you because you've never had a date. Let's forget about that insult. Jessica, would you go out to dinner and a movie with me this Friday night? I'm not sure what I said in response, as my mind was in a fog from what he said. Obviously, I said yes because we went out that Friday and many times after that. When I was with him, I always felt beautiful, valued, and respected. We talked about many things, but my feelings about myself were a common theme. Sometimes I had a date with someone else, but I was only excited when Ree asked me out. By the time we graduated, two things were settled. I had a dash of self-esteem, and I was in love with Ree. We went to college together and soon began living in the same apartment. He was my first and only. I enjoyed the sex we had every single time. There was no marriage proposal moment. We both just knew we were getting married. A couple of months after graduating from high school, we both found jobs. We chose a house that could accommodate us and a couple of kids. A few years later, our son was born. He was somewhat planned and somewhat a surprise. We were ready to have kids and just didn't take any precautions to prevent pregnancy. My pregnancy was awful. I gained almost 50 pounds. My acne-covered face looked like it had moon craters. For the last 3 months of my pregnancy, my son seemed to know how to press every nerve in my pelvis just as I was falling asleep. I thought I was miserable, but I found out things could get even worse. I developed toxemia and nearly died before Ree rushed me to the hospital. Thankfully, both the baby and I survived. I begged Ree to let me get my tubes tied. I didn't want to go through that again. He agreed. Nathan, our son, was a clone of Ray. They bonded from the start, which was good because I was in pain and didn't feel particularly maternal. Ree was and still is a great father. When they're together, I feel more like a maid than a wife or mother. I wasn't terribly unhappy. That's just how things were. What drove me into depression was how I saw myself in the mirror. I looked even worse than I did as a teenager. Ree never complained and kept telling me I still looked beautiful to him. No diet or exercise worked for long. 2 incidents gave me the motivation to change. One of Nathan's friends, about 4 years old, pointed me out to his parents and said, "She's fat." I laughed, but it hurt. It hurt a lot. Secondly, my parents died in a car crash. While this deepened my depression, it also gave me a large sum of money that I could use as I wished. It seemed like every commercial on TV at the time was for facelifts, acne treatments, double chin reduction, tummy tucks, and so on. I went to Ree and told him I wanted to use my inheritance to pay for various procedures to improve my appearance. I cried as I asked. Ree said it was my money and I could use it however I wanted. He said he was fine with how I looked now, but if it would make me happy, he was okay with it. That's when I started to change. It took 2 years of surgeries, including breast implants, liposuction, and a tummy tuck. I also attended fat camps that helped me achieve what I wanted. During this time, I had to be away from home a lot. Ray and Nathan seemed to manage just fine without me. Nathan even joked when my face was wrapped in bandages, "Look, look, my mom is a mummy." Along the way, I received advice on makeup and clothing. I got a new blonde hair color and hairstyle, along with manicures and pedicures. Blue-tinted contact lenses replaced my glasses. I realized I had reached my goal when I was working as a model in a clothing store, and the saleswoman said, "Honey, you look so good. You could cure erectile dysfunction." My attitude changed too. I started making friends with other gorgeous women, kind of like a MILF club. Now, instead of talking about childcare and housework, I talked about sexual techniques and affairs. Affairs for these women were nothing to feel guilty about. They were earned. The idea of having an affair became an exciting fantasy for me. The thrill of sneaking around and possibly getting caught, the chance to have sex with another man. Ray was the only man I had ever had sex with. I blamed the unfairness of life for missing out on being with other men. I had overcome life's unfairness, so now it was time for me to get compensation for those miserable, ugly duckling years. I was owed my affair. My affair began when I was supposed to meet my friend Mary Jo at a new Mediterranean restaurant downtown. She highly recommended it to me. I arrived early, which was good because the place filled up quickly. I sat at a round table outside with an umbrella overhead. After waiting for a while, I got a message from Mary Jo. Something had come up at work, and she couldn't join me. I was deciding whether to stay or not when he approached. His name was Gregor. He was a Greek god. I was immediately filled with desire. I think he asked if he could join me for lunch, since there were no free tables. He sat down, although I don't think I said anything. My affair had begun. He was everything the new Jessica wanted. Handsome, dark-haired, tan-skinned, rich, and a bit of a bad boy. Almost everything Ree was not. It didn't take many meetings for us to end up in bed. It was wonderful. I had no hesitation in trying everything he wanted to do. Things I had refused Ray as too dirty. After a few months, I decided I wanted Gregor all the time. He agreed. We planned for me to go with him to Greece and leave my old life behind. He offered the new Jessica exactly what she wanted, a new life. Even though I still loved Ray, I was in love with Gregor. I was grateful to Ree for what he had done for me, but he wasn't my soulmate. Nathan was a good kid, but he was and always would be a daddy's boy. During my surgeries, they proved they could manage without me. I had suffered a lot in my previous life. Starting over in a foreign country with the love of my life became my main goal. Gregor asked me to start transferring my money to a bank account in Greece. He tried to help me set it up, but the process was so complicated that I just gave him access to my accounts to do it for me. We were waiting for the perfect moment for me to leave. Ree could file for divorce because I had left him. There would be no divorce papers for me to warn him. Our chance came when Ree had a week-long seminar scheduled in San Francisco. Gregor and I had planned a short honeymoon in the Bahamas before heading to Greece. It was hard to keep my composure, knowing what was within my reach. Any doubts about what I was doing were drowned out by thoughts of the time spent in bed with Gregor and our future together. I was finally going to get what I deserved out of life. At home, Ree walked into the house at 6 p.m., more than half an hour later than usual. His tie was undone, and he looked terrible. Uncharacteristically, he threw his jacket on the couch and headed to the fridge. He took a glass from the cabinet next to the fridge and half filled it with ice from the ice maker. Then he went to the liquor cabinet and grabbed a bottle of Knob Creek bourbon. Once he had poured a generous amount of bourbon into the glass, he topped it off with ginger ale. He took a big gulp and said, "Ah." He walked over to his recliner and slumped into it, careful not to spill his drink. His wife, Jessica, came out of the laundry room and walked down the hallway into the living room. "You're late. I'll have to reheat dinner since you didn't bother to let me know you'd be late," she said. The only response from her husband was the look in his dead eyes. She decided to be more polite. Now is not the time to make a fuss. "You look exhausted. Bad day at the office, huh? Well, it's good you have the big trip to San Francisco tomorrow. You can get away from all this office madness. By the way, have you packed everything?" It was hard for her to fake sadness about him being away for a week, When she was really thrilled about the planned getaway with her lover to the Bahamas, Jessica was about to mention how much she would miss him when he interrupted. "No need to pack." "What do you mean?" "I'm not going." Fear gripped Jessica, thinking her plans with Gregor might fall apart. "Why aren't you going?" she asked. "I got fired today," he replied. "What? What the hell happened? Why were you fired?" she asked. "I lost my security clearance," he said. "Oh my God, Ray. Talk to me. What happened that you lost your clearance?" Me, what do you mean? How could I be the reason you lost your clearance?" she asked. "Don't you remember when I first started working at Tadine? We both had to get security clearances because my dealings with government agencies would be highly classified. Well, your clearance was revoked, which was enough to raise suspicions that led to mine being revoked. No top secret clearance, no job," he explained. "Why was my security clearance revoked?" "I didn't do anything wrong," she said. "I'm afraid national security disagrees. To them, having an affair with an ISIS terrorist is enough," he replied. Jessica sank onto the couch abruptly. Denial was her first approach. "That's it. It's ridiculous. I haven't had an affair with anyone, let alone a terrorist," she protested. "We're talking about national security. They can find out how many sheets of toilet paper you use per wipe if they want to. They showed me photos and videos. Your boyfriend Gregor isn't a Greek importer like he told you. He's a high-ranking ISIS operative. I can't believe how easily you fell for his charm. Now I see how little our marriage and my love meant to you," he said. "Ray, how can you say that? You know I love you, and only you. Gregor is just a friend. This is all a huge mistake," she said. "Show me the photos." "They didn't give me a copy. It's part of the evidence they're compiling. You'll see them soon enough. By the way, a friend doesn't get to have sex with my wife, especially when she lets him do things she refuses to do with her husband," he replied. Her pretense of not having an affair quickly dissolved. "I never let him do anything kinky with me." "You mean you have pictures of us doing that?" "I know that's not true," she said. "True. I think you know it's true. I can't believe the government was spying on me. What I do in my personal life is my business," she argued. "What about my right to privacy? I think I'll sue." "Sue the government? Ha! You lying officials, you should be grateful," he said. "Grateful? Why should I be grateful? My future is ruined just because of your stupid security clearance," she asked. "You should be grateful the FBI found out about him when they did. You thought you were going to the Bahamas with him, but they know about that. Yes, Gregor planned to kidnap you if you didn't go willingly. He was going to demand ransom from me, pressuring me to disclose some classified information. Whether I gave him the information or not, you were going to be sold into white slavery in the Middle East," he revealed. Jessica sat there stunned. The enormity of her situation crashed down on her. All her dreams of a new life with Gregor, the fantasy she had built up, were now shattered. The man she had trusted and fallen in love with, a man who, unbeknownst to her, was a terrorist, and her life was in ruins. But he loved me," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Ray's voice was cold. "He used you, just like you used me. Now, I have to figure out how to rebuild my career and my life. While you faced the consequences of your betrayal, Jessica's world had fallen apart, and there was no escaping the mess she had created." Ray's emotions churned within him, a turbulent storm raging against the backdrop of Jessica's confession and plea for help. He felt the weight of betrayal pressing down on him, yet a flicker of empathy still glimmered in the recesses of his heart. As Jessica contemplated her next move, Ray's mind raced with the implications of her actions. He struggled to comprehend the gravity of the situation, grappling with the sudden revelation of Gregor's true identity and intentions. The air crackled with tension as the truth unraveled before them. When Jessica defiantly proclaimed her intention to call Gregor, Ray's resolve solidified. With a swift motion, he seized her phone and delivered a sharp slap across her cheek, a jarring punctuation mark in their tumultuous exchange. Jessica's tears mirrored the shattered remnants of her illusions, cascading down her cheeks in silent anguish. Ray's voice sliced through the heavy silence, laden with accusation and resignation. He recounted the damning evidence against Gregor, each word a bitter pill for Jessica to swallow. The reality of her betrayal loomed large, casting a long shadow over their once shared life. As Jessica grappled with the magnitude of her actions, Ray's words pierced through her defenses with surgical precision. His blunt assessment laid bare the stark consequences of her choices, stripping away the veneer of denial that had shielded her from the harsh truth. In the face of Jessica's tearful plea for help, Ray's response was a bitter mixture of resentment and reluctant empathy. His inner turmoil threatened to consume him, torn between the desire to lash out and the faint flicker of compassion that still lingered within him. As the weight of their shattered dreams bore down upon them, Ray and Jessica stood at a crossroads, each grappling with their own demons. The future stretched out before them, a daunting landscape fraught with uncertainty and regret. Yet, amidst the ruins of their broken trust, a glimmer of hope still flickered, a fragile ember in the darkness, waiting to be rekindled. "You don't need to worry about that," Ray said coldly. "The feds will be here soon. You won't have to worry about food, clothing, shelter, toiletries, or entertainment for a long time." "But I didn't know what Gregor was up to," Jessica protested. "Of course, you see, that's exactly what the government will see. You were willing to abandon your current family to risk your entire future and be with a man whose activities you were unaware of. Maybe you'll avoid severe punishment as long as they believe you could be either so stupid or so lust-driven. If you're lucky, I'd guess they'll put you in a program to hide your identity. Actually, I think my son and I might have to participate too. Bad guys might want to retaliate against all of us." "Oh my God, do you really think our lives will be in danger? I can't believe this is happening." "Of course, we're not in any danger. They love to be merciful to people who kill their jihad warriors, so we'll all be in hiding together." "No, if I have anything to say about it, you might as well have opened the door, dear. You're being arrested by the National Security Service." "No, no, no, please, Ray, help me.
I'm sorry.
I've been fooled. I never wanted to hurt anyone. You had no problem leaving me and our son alone, hurting our feelings and taking our money. I don't see any reason not to pay you back in kind. Open the door before they break it down." Jessica, stumbling, made her way to the door, still crying. She opened the door and saw a man in a dark blue suit and hat. "Jessica, you've been served," he said, handing her an envelope with divorce papers inside. Jessica looked at Ray with a big question mark on her face. Ray was smiling. "You bastard. You really made up this story about Gregor. He's not a terrorist. Well, I needed proof of your affair. I've suspected for some time. I knew something, but you filled in the details for me. Our entire conversation was recorded tonight. Gregor isn't a terrorist, but he's a liar, a cheat, and a con artist. He's up to his neck in debt and planned to take our money and run. When you'd show up at the airport for your trip to the Bahamas, you wouldn't find him. Our money would be out of the country, and you'd be standing at the airport feeling very, very foolish. How do you know that's exactly what he was planning to do? The police did arrest him earlier today for theft, conspiracy, and, in my opinion, alienation of affection. The tax service will probably add 1 or 2 charges." He confessed without any pressure. "He wasn't very complimentary in his description of you and your sexual abilities." In search of an exit, Jessica said, "Ray, honey, once you saved me, do you still have enough love to give me a second chance? Do you think so? I have any options in the divorce? Not much. Leave now, and I'll pay for a motel room for 2 weeks in exchange for not telling the world about your betrayal. I'll give you half my possessions and your car. I'll get primary custody of our child with free visitation rights, especially given your willingness to abandon him. No child support. That's still cruel. I can't believe you. After what you did to your family, I can't tell you what I'd like to do. Just get out. I have to prepare myself to tell my son about his cheating mother." Years later, Ree and Nathan were really getting along well, just as Jessica had predicted. Along with work, Ree had enough being a good father to keep him busy. Nathan became active in sports, soccer in the fall, basketball in the winter, and baseball in the spring. Ree rarely missed a game, a PTA meeting, or participated in many fundraising events. In the social arena, Ree did make a couple of friends who had perks that allowed him to trim his antlers, but none of the friends came even close to what could be called a relationship with Ree. Soon, Nathan would be driving, and Ree would have less free time. He suggested that maybe then he could think about a serious relationship. One day, the doorbell rang. He opened the door and saw Jessica, the old Jessica. It was obvious that she had reversed most of the surgeries she had undergone. She looked almost like the Jessica he had first fallen in love with. After waiting for him to speak, she melted the ice. To answer your unspoken question, everything except the breast work. I just couldn't give them up. I spent almost all of my settlement money to cancel the surgeries because I wanted to show you that I could be the old Jessica again, the one you fell in love with and helped me become a decent wife and mother. I'd like us to start over, at least as much as possible. The way I look now won't encourage men to hit on me, so that temptation is removed. I want my actions to prove to you that I will return to the Jessica who loves you more than anyone else. I can't prove that to you until you let me be there for you and Nathan. I'm not talking about marriage, just to be a part of your and Nathan's life again. I know it will take a long time for you and Nathan to trust me again, but I promise you can to prove my sincerity. I've spent every dime I have preparing to come here today. I have nowhere else to go. I am completely at your mercy, completely ready to prove my love for my family. She sank to her knees, deep down. I believe your heart is big enough to let me back in. I beg you, for the sake of our family, I promise I'll do everything I can to make you eventually look back on this time with gratitude for giving me a second chance. She looked at him hopefully, her face streaked with tears. Ree took a deep breath and replied, I think I'll have to remain ungrateful. He slammed the door in her face.